What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. This is your retro review for the Real Housewives of New Jersey season 2 episode 14. So we start this episode off. We found out that Joe has gotten a DUI, right? We open up with Chris and Jacqueline going over to Teresa and Joe's house for dinner. Joe had this DUI, and so we're getting like the ins and outs of what happened. So basically, Joe's version of the story is, and Jacqueline said they had been out to dinner and that Joe wasn't drunk, and so she doesn't understand what happened. Here's where I'm confused with this whole story. And again, I know this is old news, but this is just what I'm confused about. Joe tells the story, and so Jacqueline said that they had gone out to dinner with Teresa and Joe. The accident happened at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So that means that Joe went home, dropped Teresa off, and went back out. Now, according to him, he was sober. He had not been drinking. Here's what he said happened. He said he got into the accident. He said that he was falling asleep at the wheel. He went to go overcorrect, and he ended up running into a couple of trees, and his car smashed into the tree or whatever. He said that this literally happened right in front of his father's house. So he walked over to his father's house, and while they waited for the police to get there, he started drinking because he was mad, and he was like, man, I can't believe I just did that. And so he had a couple of drinks. So then by the time the police got there, he was drunk, but he wasn't drunk while he was driving. So why were you? Let's just walk down that road. Why were you on your way to your daddy's house at 2 o'clock in the morning? I mean, did he need something? Was he not feeling well? Were you dropping off some groceries? Why did you go home, drop your wife off, and then go back outside at 2 in the morning? Listen, I know this happened 10 years ago, so I ain't even about to sit here and waste no brain cells on it. But it just leaves a lot of questions. So moving on. Of course, Danielle and Danny are reveling in the fact that Joe has had this DUI, and oh my gosh, and I mean, Danielle asked a couple of the same questions. Why was he out at 2 in the morning instead of at home with his wife and kids? Listen, I don't know. Um, but neither here nor there, child. Everybody was fine, thank God. Moving on. So Teresa, Jacqueline, and Carolyn go out to lunch. And it's funny when we look back on these scenes now and we know how the whole reality thing is set up. We know they go on these trips or whatever. They decide that, you know what, they need to get out of town with everything going on with Joe, and they're so sick of Danielle and her pressing charges against Ashley. They just need to get out. They just need to go somewhere. And Jacqueline is like, well, I ain't trying to put on no bathing suit, so I don't want to go to the Caribbean. I ain't trying to go to no island. And Carolyn was like, oh yeah, I ain't putting on no bathing suit either, so where we going? And Teresa was like, I mean, we could go to Italy. And I'm just thinking, on one hand, I get it. Both of their families are from Italy. They're first generation or immigrants themselves. Like Joe was born in Italy. Teresa came over when she was a kid. I mean, Teresa was born here, but she's first generation. Her parents were born in Italy. So, like, I get it, right? But on the other hand, I'm like, there were so many other options between the Caribbean and Italy. So now they have to go and convince their husbands that this is a good idea, right? And it was cute. It was really cute. Teresa and Joe, it wasn't as hard to convince Joe, other than the fact that Joe is griping about money, right? And again, this whole him complaining about money thing continues. It continues as a theme. So him complaining about money. Jacqueline was cute. She dressed the kids up, and she had on like Italian paraphernalia, whatever. And he was like, I'm down. Like it's cool. It's cool. The hardest person to convince was Al, right? Carolyn was talking to Al, and Al's thing was, listen, I don't have no problem. Like, first of all, he really wasn't trying to be away from his business for so long. But he was like, okay, we can do this, but can it just be like a couples trip? Like, can the kids not come? He was like, because we don't have no babies. Our kids are grown. We can leave our kids here. And on one hand, I understand him saying, listen, I am past that part of my life. I want a nice, quiet vacation with just me and my wife. But that's the downside of having friends, I'll put that in air quotes, that have children. Like when y'all want to go on vacation, guess what? They're gonna be a part of the equation. Okay. But okay, but of course, all of them agree to go, and then they decide they're going to take their parents because Teresa and Joe, they took both sets of parents because again, that's where they're from. They were born there, and then Carolyn and Chris are taking their parents. And Jacqueline, I think, took her mom. So yeah, they took all the parents, right? Ashley couldn't go. They finally gave that girl a consequence, but I don't even think they gave her a consequence because they had to. I think they gave her a consequence because she probably couldn't go anywhere. Not that she was on parole or anything, but she probably had maybe an update, an upcoming court date. Maybe she had to do some stuff that the lawyer said would make it look good if she stayed in town to take care of. I don't know. But I don't think Ashley didn't go because they were really giving her a consequence, because I just don't believe that they do that. Anyway. So, baby, all them families done packed up, and it is chaos from the beginning. Poor Jacqueline's mama done missed the step in Teresa's house, lost her balance, and knocked over one of them huge ass vases that Teresa had literally as they were walking out the door. She felt so bad. I felt bad because I would have been so embarrassed. Like, you're meeting this person for the first time. You're in this mausoleum of a house and you end up breaking something, not, and of course they offered to pay for it or whatever, and Teresa was like, it's okay, don't worry about it, because I mean, yeah, like I probably wouldn't, I mean, unless it was like really, out of King Tut's tomb, you know what I mean, like it would just be a okay, whatever, kind of thing. Child, they take the caravan, the big old bus with the poles in the middle, and whenever you're going on a trip, you generally excited, right? Especially when you're going with a group. Like, I've done group trips, and generally you are excited. You're happy to see each other, however you link up, whether you link up at the airport, whether y'all all meet at somebody's house and y'all take one big van. Like, you're excited, like, of the possibilities of what this trip is going to be. And they were. The kids were excited. Everybody was having a good time. The family, you had 3 generations. Yeah, 3 generations. I want to make sure I didn't have 4. 3 generations, and it is just a great thing, right? Of course they fly, they get over there, and it is just chaos from them getting their luggage, because of course Teresa packed like she wasn't never coming home, child. So they had 5,000 bags. So the trip was, they got to Venice, they did some sightseeing around Venice, and then they got on a ship. The cruise ship took them to Naples, where they spent the night in Naples, and then they took a bus to Teresa and Joe's hometown, where their families were born and where Joe was born. It sounds like a really nice trip. I've been to Venice and Naples, right? So they get to Venice. Again, it looks like it's cold there because they have more coats and gloves and that kind of thing. But of course they want to get on a gondola, which of course made it even colder. The parents stayed back because, it was a lot for them getting in and out of the boat and then being on the water. Of course, Teresa and the kids were there, child. Being Teresa and the kids, getting on Joe's nerves. Then Teresa just had to find Chanel. She had to find Chanel. Now, let me say this. I'm not really sure why she needed Chanel. Of all the stores that I would have wanted to go to in Venice, I'm not sure why Chanel was that store. But Teresa walked all over that place looking for Chanel, to the point where everybody was sick of Teresa and Chanel. Only for them to get there, baby, and the store was closed because it was lunchtime. Because, over in Europe, they take I was gonna say sabbatical, but that's not right. Now it escapes me, but I know what it is, child. I know y'all gonna put it in the comments. But anyway, baby, they was closed for lunch. And Teresa was like, oh my gosh, who does that? They don't do that in New York. Well, girl, go to Chanel in New York because they got one. They got more than one. And don't get me wrong, when I've gone over to Europe, yes, I have gone to all of the European places. Y'all, if y'all followed me last year when I was telling y'all about, yes, I went to the stores, right? But girl, Teresa act like if she didn't go to that Chanel in Venice, it was just never gonna be no other Chanel ever, just ever. They finally get on the boat, and then Carolyn talks about how much she hates cruise ships. Then why did you agree to go on one? understand. If you don't like cruises, why did you agree to go on a cruise? Now, I'm not sure how many days they stayed on this cruise, but it was at least 3 to 4 days. It might have been more, but it was at least 3 to 4 days that they were on this cruise. And the first night was cool. The guys went to the bar, had a drink. I wasn't with them. It was just Chris and it was Joe. And it was so funny because it was so obvious that the production had set this scene up and they wanted them to talk about Danielle. And Joe could care less. Like, Chris is having this whole conversation about Danielle and how he's just glad they could get away and he's sick of Danielle and he's sick of all the things that Danielle's doing to his family and all the trouble she's starting. And Joe is just sitting there like this. He's like, yeah, well, she's not here right now. Like, he could care less about Danielle and anything dealing with Danielle, okay? And it was so awkward because you could tell Chris was trying to get Joe to have this conversation that I'm sure they told them to have, and Joe was just not here for it, and it really made Chris look like he was just gossiping or something. Anyway, so the next night, the ladies went out. Mind you, Carolyn wasn't with them either. It was Jacqueline and Teresa. And let me tell you something. They had a good time, okay? They did what me and my friends do when we go on vacation, especially if we go on a cruise ship. They was bar hopping. They took over the piano bar. Me and my friends took over a piano bar at St. Martin one time, baby, and we had ourselves a good time. We was drinking that Red Stripe. It was like $1 per Red Stripe. I don't think I'd have had that much beer in my life because it was $1. For no other reason than it was $1. I probably had $10 worth of Red Stripe that night. Okay. I don't know how we got back up that hill to get to our room. But honey, we made it. And it was a good time. And I'm sure that is how Jacqueline felt the next day. Because baby, Jacqueline was so damn hungover. She couldn't even make it to dinner, which was the birthday party for Melania, who was turning 5 or 4 or one of them ages. Now, the poor thing was, Teresa set up this nice little dinner, private dinner in the dining room, and the captain came over and all of that. But baby, the kids fell asleep. They fell asleep while they were waiting for the dessert to come out. Why? Because they kids, and they were on a cruise, and they probably had been running around all day and in and out of the pool and all those other things that kids do on a cruise. And so by the time the cake came out, first of all, it didn't even look like a birthday cake that a kid would want. She was over it. Okay, she was asleep. They woke her up to blow out her candles. And she was like, I don't want it. I don't care that it is my birthday. I don't want none of what y'all are trying to give me. I don't want that cake. I don't want them candles. I don't want them cameras. I don't want nothing but this lap, my daddy's lap that I was sleeping perfectly fine in. And of course, Teresa was embarrassed. But again, what you gonna do? Now, rewind a little bit. Teresa done convinced Carolyn and Albert to babysit the girls so her and Joe could have some alone time. Now, let me say this, and this might sound very mean what I'm getting ready to say, but here's what I am going to say. Listen, when you make a decision to have 4 kids under the age of 10, when you go on vacation, baby, you get what you get. Okay? Now, granted, Carolyn and Albert didn't have to say yes. However, they had only been on that boat for maybe 1 to 2 days. Because, again, I'm not sure. 1 to 2 days. And y'all done asked them grown people to babysit your 4 badass kids so y'all can have some alone time. Listen, every cruise ship that I have ever been on, except for this Virgin cruise that I'm going on next summer, which is a whole adult cruise, so there ain't no kids. But every cruise that I have ever been on got a whole kids club, okay? They got a camp and a kids club, and they separated by age group. If y'all don't, and it's like an extra little, $10, $15 a day. I don't know how much it is because I don't have no kids. But if y'all don't go enroll them in that damn kids club, and then you and Joe can have all the alone time y'all want. So, of course, Carolyn was like, I done sold Albert on this damn cruise. On this trip of it being some alone time for us. We done left the kids at home, and we done got here, we done babysat. And I'm going to give Carolyn a lot of grace because Carolyn was trying her best not to call them kids badasses. She said, I just raised my kids differently. She would use them cold words like, I just had more of an iron fist. You know, I'm just a lot. I'm a very conservative parent. I was catching everything you was throwing, Carolyn. I was catching all the cold words. But basically, what it boiled down to is Teresa's kids is bad as hell, and Teresa let them do whatever they want to do. And here you are babysitting, doing them a favor so they could go practice making another one. But Albert was really good with them. Am I the only one that heard that little girl call that man by his first name? No Uncle Albert, no Mr. Albert. See, that's how I was raised. You don't just walk around calling people, you a kid, and you calling your friends' parents by their first name. You better put an uncle or a mister on that. You don't just be saying Albert. Who did, where they do that? See, I just wasn't raised like that. Okay? So this episode basically ended with them getting off the cruise ship and headed on to their hotel in Venice. Okay? I mean, not Venice, Naples. Where Teresa ain't no Mount Vesuvius. Look, I'm not doing this with Teresa. I'm just not. Anyway, that's the episode. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to y'all later.